and I've got my trusty cup of tea, being the Brit that
Yeah, I just got a little bit of water actually. Where's my bottle? There we go.
So, hey everyone, and welcome to the first episode of, I'm going to call this Ark Cast, because to be fair, I didn't really think of a different name or anything for it. But I'm going to be doing a series basically talking about all things Lost Ark, because this game is absolutely beautiful. And today I'm joined here by the amazing Lin-0 over there. So, hi Lin-0, how are you?
Hello. Doing just fine. How about yourself?
Yes, really, really good. Fine, thank you. I've been super excited for this since I started talking to you because the game's amazing. And I've been loving it. I first looked at this game back in like 2014 when the trailers and stuff started coming out. Then I played a little bit in 2018 for the Korean one, but I didn't get too far in it then. And then here we are now, testing out the Russian one and stuff, and it's really good. But yeah, so today we're going to be breaking down PvP basically and talking about all that. So as a bit of an overview and stuff for this, it's, as I said, talking about a bit of the PvP and a bit of like the ranking system, what it might be like to like climb it, if that's okay with you, Lino.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Amazing. And like some tips maybe for PvP. As well as and I'd love to do this best we can is talk about every single class, just like a brief kind of overview, what you might be able to expect from the class if you were playing it or picking it up maybe for the first time, just getting into Lost Ark. And then maybe a little bit of information about maybe how to like counter a class, like, you know, good at kiting, they're like a berserker or something like that, which should be amazing. So, all right, guys, so I'm just cutting in here very quickly, just to let you know that I am splitting this podcast into two parts because it did go on quite long. So the first part will be everything up to the talk about all the classes and how to counter them, and I'll release that as its own video very shortly as part 2. So stay tuned for that one, all right? Yeah, so thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate that, and welcome on. First off, why don't we just go with tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how long have you been playing Lost Ark? And I believe it's mainly PvP that you do, right?
That's right, yeah. So I actually started Lost Ark a little bit after the Russian release. So I think that was in October 2019. That October 2019 was when the Russian release came about, and I started playing in November. So a few months after that, I started playing Lost Ark originally, actually because of the PvE instead of the PvP.
Right, okay.
Because I didn't think it would be good to play the game competitively when I was at a high ping, and I wasn't really sure how Russia was going to be doing the whole IP banning situation and whatever. So I just thought I'd go into the game, play with some friends, and see how it all worked out. But then I ended up just kind of getting hooked into the PvP, and it drew me in, and that's where I've been playing kind of ever since. So I did start back in November 2019, but it's been a little bit of an on and off. So,
Okay, but I mean, I've been playing some PvP as well, and I love PvP. And this game took me by surprise with how addicting it is. It's amazing, right? It's such a fun experience. So
I think my favorite part of it is you do feel a sense that you're improving over time, even though it is a team game, and that's something that's a little bit hard to get, especially with team games, right? You always feel, oh, you know, it's my team's fault, or you perform, but you can't really tell where exactly it was that you did badly. And I think Lost Ark actually does a pretty good job at helping you identify your mistakes, especially, you know, if you kind of record your own matches or you just look back at the games you've been playing. You really get that sense of achievement and fulfillment rather when you're playing the game for a longer period of time. And I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, I started getting my ass kicked. It's like straight away, as you can imagine. A lot of people going into this, my experience the same, but
they will, yeah.
Very quickly, if you focus on improving, then I got significantly better very quickly because I was focused on doing it. And I like I said, I love the PvP inside. So why don't we talk about like what's kind of like your main class or classes that you like to play, and maybe like what it is you like about them?
Yeah, so my main right now, I'm a bit mainless currently.
Okay.
So just kind of multi-classing. I've been through many mains over the years. I started the game playing Summoner. It was because I really like playing mages. like blowing stuff up with big explosions. So
Yeah.
Summoner was the most magey mage, is what I would say back then.
Hmm.
So that's what I started with.
Hmm.
And it's a pretty fun class, but I got a little bit frustrated with the class at times because it's a very stationary class, and you
Yeah.
don't have that much protection. So
Hmm.
it's one of those. It's probably the class with the biggest damage potential in the entire game, but
Right.
also a class that does need a little bit of babysitting. So I thought, you know
Hmm.
what, I want to try to be a little bit more independent. So then I went to Blaster,
Right.
which you
Yep.
still got big explosions. So Blaster's artillerist, right, in the NAEU version. You
Yes.
still got the very big explosions. You actually feel more like a mage than you do when playing Summoner because of all the long skill cast times and the setups that you have to do.
Hmm.
And I just kind of love playing Blaster and play that for a while. But then every season I've been trying to learn a different class just so I can become a little bit more flexible as a player.
Okay.
And this latest season, I decided to stop playing Arcana to give her a go
Right.
because I was thinking, you know what, I want to play a mage, but I'm not too fond of Bard, and I kind of want a change of pace from Summoner, who's too stationary. So I
Hmm.
just went with kind of the melee hybrid Arcana, and
Yeah.
I just kind of fell in love with it. And I would consider Arcana my main currently in the Russian version.
Hmm.
But then ever since that NAU release announcement with no Arcana, so I spent 6 months learning the class and picking it up and trying to figure out how to play, and then turns out that it's not going to be released. So I've had to
Oh.
kind of just feel a little bit lost. I've picked up Shadowhunter, so Demonic,
Yep.
lately to have a bit of a melee hybrid class that kind of tickles that itch that I've this acquired taste that I got by playing Arcana. So
Amazing.
been playing a little bit of Shadowhunter. But really, if I'm gonna be honest, my main now that it's come out in Korea is Sorceress because
Right.
that is as close to a mage as you're gonna get in
It
this game,
is.
and
Yeah.
she is really fun. Even at 220 ping, which can be quite frustrating to play, she
Hmm.
is really fun, and she feels like she has a very specific niche
Yep.
that I really enjoy.
That's
So yeah.
amazing. And hits pretty hard. The sorceress hits pretty hard.
Ish, actually, that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
pretty funny. She isn't much of a traditional mage in the sense that you blow stuff up with big spells. She
Hmm.
has those big spells. She has like Divine Punishment, Doomsday. You drop like a massive meteor on somebody, but
Oof.
then you drop a massive meteor, but that massive meteor does 20k damage. When you have perfect shot from Devil Hunter doing 25 to 28k damage
Yep.
without a damage the perfect timing pod. So
That's
if
it.
it unfortunately, she doesn't actually do too well with the damage builds currently,
Right.
but she is very good as a ranged enabler, and she does a lot of damage just by landing skills, right? So 10k here, 15k there, 8k here,
Hmm.
and that ends up adding up very quickly to do a lot of damage.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's amazing because that's like the newest class coming out. So,
It is, yeah.
yeah, and then eventually we will be able to get that for an EU release. Right. Yeah,
That's
so
right.
thank you for that. So for any of the maybe like newer players listening to this, maybe wanting to get into Lost Ark PvP, my next question is based around like if you were a newer player, like what class would you potentially consider them playing or maybe recommend? Like, are there some that might be a bit easier to learn as a newer player
Yeah,
just getting into PvP?
yeah, there are. I want to flag though that easy to pick up does not mean easy to master. There are
Hmm.
some classes that have incredibly low skill floors, and they're actually really easy to perform well with at the beginning.
Hmm.
But they have once you start getting to the higher levels, like high plat, diamond, especially if you want to push master and grandmaster, these classes end up becoming very difficult because that skill ceiling is very high. So if
Right.
I were to split them into categories, I'd say if you want to play support, Bard is really good to start with
Yep.
because Bard is a class that doesn't really have to commit.
Hmm.
So Warlord and Holy Knight, which are the other supports, are quite melee, and Holy Knight suffers from a lack of super armor,
Right.
and so that's knockdown, knockback, knock up immunity, which is I think called push in the NAU version.
Okay.
And Warlord is very slow, and you need to have a lot of class knowledge to play Warlord because the whole Warlord thing is you want to hook chain people in, bash and then burst cannon, but you got to know when is the right opportunity to do these things. Bard,
Yes.
on the other hand, you can play a little bit more of a safer game. You can be behind. It's really a traditional support, right? Your job is can you keep your team alive? So if you can
Yep.
just focus on that on Bard, you can do pretty well. And Bard has, out of 8 skills, 6 out of those 8 skills is hard stiff immune, and pretty much at
Right.
least 4 are super armor. So it's a pretty safe class that can have a very significant impact on the battlefield, and is relatively easy to pick up. But again, it's pretty difficult to perform as you go high up, because people are going to be focusing you down. You become the priority target. So
that's it. So
be wary.
I mean, because I've been playing a bit of Soulfist, but also a lot of Gunslinger, and I really notice when the enemy team has a bard, and then if I try and go for the bard, it's like I don't know what the skills are called, but it does like the little like lightning stun or something like in front of them.
Yes, Overture Storm. It's a crack skill. It's so strong.
It's really strong, because I'll be so mobile as a gunslinger, and I'll dash around like a berserker, get round to the back where the bard is, and then lock down, because I've already used all my mobility, locked down by the bard, and then they've got another skill, like a casting skill, like a beam in front of them. Again, you might know the name for this.
Yeah, Soundholic, which does immense amounts of damage.
It does.
Bard's only real damage skill, but if she lands it, it hurts more than most damage skills from the DPS classes, which is wild.
And I learned that the hard way. Okay, so Bard might be a good one to start with.
Yeah,
how about
if you want to go with supports? Yeah.
How about maybe like a Berserker? I've heard Berserkers might be a bit on the easier side.
Yeah. So when it comes to melee, so with support, I'd say Bard's easiest for melee. I'd actually say Blade and Destroyer are probably easier than Berserker, but we're not going to have Destroyer in NAU. So for players that are going to be going to NAU, I think Deathblade is probably one of the easiest classes to pick up, because she's very well protected. She has a lot of protections. She has lots of lingering skills, so it's very difficult to engage on a blade. Not only because she has protected skills that, she has super armor or hard stiff immunity, but also because if you try to go in, well, the sudden attack clone leaves behind like a little swirly aura that knocks you back. Or you're going to try and punish Rising Whirlwind, which is her knock-up, or she has armor. Well, that also has a linger as well. And she has really, really fast stuns. So she can be very difficult to go in on, and she can be quite safe when engaging on enemies. So I think she's actually pretty easy to pick up.
That's amazing.
Zerk is also pretty easy, I think. I actually would probably recommend Zerk over Blade, simply because although I think Blade is easier than Zerk to pick up, Zerk will teach you a little bit more about the game's fundamentals. Okay. Because Zerk actually suffers from having very long cooldowns and even mana issues with those long cooldowns. Yep. Which is something Blade also has quite big cooldowns, but she has so many useful skills that you can kind of pace around and work around these. Whereas Zerk is very, very very one-dimensional as a class. But playing around this one-dimensional limitation of the class means that you become very well aware of your surroundings and your cooldowns and when to go in and when to punish. So it's one of those classes that kind of stomps on noobs, but at the same time, it's also kind of difficult to play at a high level, because you have to be very solid with your fundamentals. And I think Zerk can teach you that very well, while still being easy to pick up.
Lovely, because Zerk's skills can hit really quite hard, can't they, when they do hit?
And he has many very high damage unrollable combos because of Mountain Crash, which is his Earthquake Stomp that hard CCs you. Yep. So even if you have roll up, if the Zerk like shoulder charges at you, he can do a lot of damage just off of one unreactable engage. Oof. So that's why if you're fighting a Zerk, you gotta peel them off your teammates, because it's not a question of whether they'll be able to engage. It's just a question of when, and you have to be able to interrupt his long cooldowns and then force him into the defensive after that. Because that was like something, again, so someone who's gone in reasonably recently with just going, right, I'm going to go like Gunslinger straight off the bat. Quite fiddly with the weapon swapping mechanics, quite tricky, but I figure if I start there, everything else might be a bit easier when I try the classes down. But you're super high mobility, and what I found out very quickly was when a berserker jumps at me on a gunslinger, all I do is focus on kiting for a little bit and then try and do some damage afterwards, because otherwise I just get smashed. You can't do damage if you're dead, so you gotta survive.
That was it. So thank you so much for that. It's Bard, Berserker, Blade, really solid choices then for someone who wants to like learn the PvP side, but also it being like a little bit, potentially a little bit easier, depending on who's behind the wheel, right? Anyway, it's going to be something
Yeah,
like
of
that.
course. No, yeah, personal skill always matters. I just think that these are classes that is a little bit easier to get started with because they are more forgiving of mistakes at the
Hmm.
beginning. So unless you're fighting, against a coordinated team or very high ranked players, these are classes that other newer players tend to struggle dealing with because they don't fully understand how to
Hmm.
punish and how to engage these classes.
Perfect.
So it's always one of those things. The assumption that I'm going is, everybody is going to be starting off kind of fresh in an AU, and you are going to have some vets. But the
Yes.
people that are going to be starting off fresh, well, they have to pick up their fundamentals, and the best classes to start doing that are classes that if you go with something like Battle Master, where you have zero super armors, you have no protection whatsoever from knockdowns,
Hmm.
and now you're trying to pick the time to engage and to do your damage and to do your combo.
Hmm.
It's very difficult to juggle mentally. When do I engage? When do I dodge skills? Which of my skills are hard, stiff, immune? When is a good opportunity to go in? When should I go back out? Versus a class that can just kind of go in, be protected, and still do damage, and other newer players are going to struggle to peel you off. So,
Yes.
lots of classes can perform well, but some are just a little bit easier to pick up than others.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I think a lot of people might find that extremely useful. So, I mean, I know I do as well. Someone who's kind of coming into the game more recently, as I say, like it's really good to pick up these bits of information. So that's absolutely perfect. So again, like obviously more with PvP. The next question
Mm-hmm.
I had was about the PvP game mode. So again, someone
Uh-huh.
completely fresh. So I believe, well, yeah, there's only one ranked version at the moment, but if you can just go through like the different PvP modes there are, and it's all equalized in as far as in the arena, correct?
Yeah, it is. It is. Just one thing, just before we close off the previous topic with
Yep.
the
Oh
classes,
yeah.
because I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
actually
Sure.
get to the range classes. I'm just gonna say that
Sorry.
summoner and artillerist are
Hmm.
also really, really simple classes to pick up. Also very hard to master, but definitely classes that people should be looking for if you want to have a ranged play style.
Hmm.
So just kind of to cover the support melee,
Yeah.
range, uh,
No, no,
play
that's
styles. I would
that's
say I don't want anyone to be like, hey, but the summoner's pretty easy. I'm like, yeah, it is. So.
yeah.
Just mention that. It's pretty easy to pick up, but microing your pets can be pretty difficult. So again, it's something. All these classes can be very difficult as you learn them. But going
Yeah.
to the 3v3 game modes question.
Hmm.
So yes, everything is equalized in arena. So there are different types of PvP in the game. There's dueling. You can just duel with people in the open world. It's a
Hmm.
little bit of like a side game, I would say. It doesn't really yield any rewards. Doesn't give you anything. You still have to heal after the duel, so you have to use a few pots to get your health back up. And it's fully gear dependent. And PvP skills don't apply. And by PvP skills, I mean that if you hold the Alt key when you highlight a skill, you have a PvE version and you have a PvP version because they
Hmm.
do balance the two different game modes differently. So
Okay.
you have things like duels, you have islands. In PvP, you can go and do some open world PvP with islands. There's guild
Hmm.
versus guild. All these things, gear matters, and it's you're using kind of PvE versions of skills, but in a PvP environment. Now,
Okay.
the actual competitive PvP, which is the arena or the Colosseum, this is where
Yep.
you go to the arena board, or you just click on the little arena board icon. Yeah, and these instanced PvP arenas, they are perfectly equalized. So you can just hit level 50.
Yep.
In Korea, that would be level 26, which is when you unlock the Lutheran city.
Okay.
And as soon as you hit that, you can just queue up. You get 50 stat points, so 1,250 stat points to
Hmm.
distribute, and 340 skill points. You get no engravings, gear doesn't matter. You could literally go naked. You just need a weapon equipped so you can actually use your skills to begin with. But it could be a
Hmm.
level 1 weapon, and everything is perfectly equalized.
That's really amazing. I actually really love that
Yeah, it
about
is
Lost Ark.
so good.
It's really cool. It makes the PvP it just feels amazing like going in. Like you don't have to worry about anything. You can literally just get a character, as you say, to level 50, for example, on the RU one, and then just
Yeah,
bam, straight in, and then it's all just comes down to player skill, right? And
that's right.
knowledge and a little bit of like what matchup and stuff you've got, like with that. But Okay, so you've got 3v3s. You've got
That's right.
what are the other game modes?
So you have two types of 3v3. You have team deathmatch, which is 3 players versus 3 players at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone gets put into a big arena, and then you have 5 minutes. In Korea, that's 4 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a given amount of time to get as many kills as you can. If you die, you respawn, and you just keep on going, like lambs to the slaughter. And you play together with 2 other teammates, and you have to cooperate and coordinate together to defeat enemies. Team deathmatch is the only game mode that has ranked with it. So no other game modes are ranked.
Okay.
Only team deathmatch.
Mhm.
The second 3v3 game mode is a last team standing, which is the 1v1 version of the game mode. So although you do queue as a team of 3 players, so even if you're queuing solo, you're gonna get matched with 2 other players.
Yep.
And you get put in a much smaller arena, and you just fight a series of 1v1 duels. So the first player of team A goes against the first player of team B, and then the survivor stays, and then the next player comes in, and you just keep duking it out until, well, the last team standing is the one that wins. And those are the 2 3v3 modes. There is one additional mode for the regular PvP, which is free for all. It's a 1v1v1v1v1v1. It's like 6 players just kind of killing each other. It's relatively unpopular, and you will be hard pressed to find queues for it in either region, because it's not very competitive at all. And the way that victors are decided are based on battle points. And battle points are not particularly indicative of how well you're performing. It's just usually indicative of how many kills, double kills, triple kills you've gotten. So
for the flashy moments, it rewards the flashy moments.
back in season 1, at the beginning of the game, you used to have some PvP opponent quests, and one of them used to be win 3 matches in free for all. But if to win a match, you have to be the top player. So it's not even either you win or you lose. You have 5 losers and 1 winner. So it's lots of people did not like that, and they did change it eventually. But free for all, unfortunately, is a little bit underrepresented. But it's just a bit of a messy, chaotic fun.
Yeah, I was about to say, it just sounds like pure chaos. Just everyone you go in to do a combo on someone and just get nailed by 2 other people because you stood still for a second, even though you might have CC'd
4 other people.
Oh, there you go. Absolute chaos. Okay, no, that's really good. Okay, so the next one is just talking about. Oh, is there anything else you want to mention before I jump over?
Yeah, actually. So there's one more game mode that I didn't mention, which is Command. Command is a 6v6, so this isn't part of the regular. It is still accessed via the arena tab, but it isn't part of the the ranked or the regular arena. It's almost like a little separate thing. It's only open at certain hours of the day, so you can't queue for Command whenever you want. You can only queue for Command when it's open.
Okay.
It's a bit of a laning game, so you have kind of like 3 lanes, and you have certain objectives. It's a sort of a King of the Hill style game mode, where you have to dominate certain points, and whoever caps the points and stays on them gets more points for your team, and the team at the end of the time, when the timer expires, the one that has the most points is the one that wins. And you have lots of like little buffs that appear around the map, and even have the kind of MOBA style bushes that you can go in and hide to surprise your enemies that they can't see. So it is a little bit of fun. Again, it's not too popular because you do need 6 players on each side, and usually when people are PvPing, they're either practicing for the competitive ranked game mode, which would be team deathmatch, or they're just doing 1v1s because they like 1v1. So Command is a little bit less popular than the other game modes, but still you're probably more likely to get a command queue that you are going to get a free-for-all queue.
Right.
And it can be pretty fun because it's a different game mode altogether. You have clear objectives, and you're working with your team, so it can be pretty fun too.
Amazing. Okay. Is there? I think I've seen on the last tab. I haven't done it myself, but is there like there's a custom game mode? So if you had a bunch of friends, you can just go in and like practice.
Yeah. So you can create custom game modes. There is no custom game mode for free for all or for command. Custom game modes are only for team deathmatch and last team standing.
Okay.
For last team standing, if I recall correctly, you cannot have spectators. So you can only have 3 players each side. But if you are doing team deathmatch, then you can have up to 10 different spectators if you'd like. So that's kind of where if you've seen the Royal Roaders tournaments that they did about 2 years ago, and they look at different players and you have kind of like a bird's eye view of the map, and you can zoom in on all different kinds of players and all that. So
Yep.
all of that's done via that custom match system and the spectating system. And
Amazing.
you get to pick a map, you get to just pick your teams and go. You can create lobbies, so you can create a room which anyone's free to join, or
Okay.
you can make a protected room where you can only get in if you have an invite from the room creator.
Perfect.
I do have to mention though that you can only do custom matches if you have 6 people, because both last team standing and team deathmatch are 3v3 modes. You can't start it with 2 people on either side.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's fair. That was going to be my next question. So thank you for answering that one. Okay. So on from that then, and just talking about this still, when it comes to the PvP ranked tiers, how does that work? There's like, you mentioned like bronze and plat and things like that. How does all that work?
That's right. So the way that it works is you have a certain rating, a certain MMR, and the number that you have is representative of a rating. You don't have matches to kind of, what would you call, promotion matches to go up in rank. So as long as you clear the threshold for a given number of points, you climb up to the next rank. And as soon as you drop that from that threshold, you lose your rank. So it's quite straightforward in that regard. You have, let's see, if I go through the ranks, the lowest rank is bronze, which begins at 0 and goes up to, if I recall correctly, 1399, so 1399, and you don't get any rewards at the end of the season if you finish in bronze. It's just the lowest rank. You get nothing. At 1400 to 1599, you are at silver. So silver, you get a costume at the end of the season. You get the bottom piece of that costume that you can use on your characters.
Lovely.
Above 1599, so 1600 to 1600 to 1799 is gold. At that point, you get the top and the bottom.
Lovely.
And then from 1800 to 2000, so as you can probably see the pattern of 200 points in each tier roughly.
Yeah.
So from 1800 to 2000, that's platinum. You get a bottom, top, and a hat, a headpiece as a costume at the end of the season. Anything above 2000 rating is diamond. So you can be, 9,000 points, or you can be 2,000 points. That's considered a diamond. And with diamond, you get a title on top of the costume that you've been receiving from the previous tiers. However, if you are over 2200 rating, and you are a top X number player, so this varies based on the server. So for Russia, the top 10 players are Grandmaster, and the top 40 players are Master. So being at 2200 or above and being in those top slots will grant you Grandmaster or Master rank.
Amazing.
And for Korea, it's a little bit more lenient. They do have a bigger player base after all. So it is top 30 for Grandmaster and top 70 for Master. I believe that's what we have in NAEU as well.
Okay, it's good to know. That is that's really interesting that you get to like diamond, and then it just depends where you are with everyone else who's diamond, where you come in there for if you get master and grandmaster.
Yeah, you do need to go from like 2000 to 2200, so there's still that 200 rating difference that you have to climb. But if you have, in Russia for example, if you have 40 players over 2200, then it doesn't matter if you break that threshold, you're still not going to be master or grandmaster, because you have to climb to that top spot.
Lovely. Right, okay, perfect on that. Do you mind if we ask, and feel free to say no, but do you mind if we ask like where you are in the rankings, like your experience kind of climbing and where you've got to and how you've kind of found it? Do you mind if we talk about that?
So I am currently master rank. So the season actually in Russia is about to end in about a week, a little bit less than a week actually. Never mind, it's going to end in about 4 days.
4 days.
And so I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be finishing the season at master rank.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
So that's the rank that I'm at currently, which would put me in the top 40. I think I was top 30. I think other people have climbed above now and got to master.
Mm-hmm.
So I've probably dropped out, but I'm still within the top 40 as
Mm-hmm.
a mastering player. This is also the rank that I've attained in previous seasons. So the pre-season, which was at the very beginning, I just got to gold. I didn't really play that much, as I said. I started playing the game for the PvE, and then just kind
Yes.
of got hooked into the PvP.
Yeah.
And then in the seasons after that, I got Master in Season 1, I got Master in Season 2, and now I'm Master in Season 3 again. I have yet to hit Grandmaster in Russia. It is, that top 10 spot is really difficult, and big
Yeah.
respect to the players who can perform to that level. I'm not quite there yet.
No,
But
but
I
I
have
mean,
managed to hit Master multiple times.
Master is really impressive because it
Yeah.
does get really competitive, right? When you start getting to, would you say maybe when you start getting to like plat, maybe and above, it starts getting like
Yeah.
noticeable difficult?
Yeah, it's complicated because in Russia, it's a little bit different between the different seasons because the player base has, we've had different sizes of player base from the start than it is now. In Russia, sadly, it's dwindled. In Korea, it's still quite healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But in Russia, it used to get pretty difficult previously when you got to, I think, like high plat diamond, because
Yep.
that's when you start getting lots of high level games with good players on both sides. So now it's no longer about, oh, how well can you kind of beat newer players, or how well you're going to be solo carrying your team, and it's more
Yeah.
how well can you work with your team and
Yeah.
perform your have good synergy is what I would say. You'd see low level games very often. People are coming out with like, oh, 750k, 700k. You see those 1 million plus damage game montages. I'm like, that's not a good game. If you're playing a
Yeah.
high skill game, getting over 500k is going to be really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the kind of games that you kind of have to sweat and can be really, really close.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in season 3, the player base has dwindled quite a bit. We have gotten a new influx of NA and EU players as a result of the announcement.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it starts getting difficult, I think, once you get to plat as of the later season,
Yep.
because unfortunately there just aren't enough people in queue to sustain high rank matchmaking. So the
Okay.
vast majority of my matches is, for example, when I was climbing to master, it was diamond, me diamond with 2 bronzes in my team versus
Right.
like a silver and 2 golds. In which
Right.
case it
Okay.
becomes really difficult because you just have to pray that your 2 bronzes are good enough to at the very least hold their own.
Yeah.
It's already, I would say you can't 1v3 in this game, and you most definitely cannot 1v5. So it gets really difficult to kind of grind out those games from platinum to diamond and above, because
Mm-hmm.
as the probably one of the higher rated players in queue, you're gonna get placed with the lowest rated players in queue. So
Yep.
it can be really difficult to climb. In A and EU, I think we're gonna have a healthy player base, and I
Mm-hmm.
think we're gonna go to these all the times of getting to even just low to mid plat where things start getting complicated because you have full plat plus players on a team, in
Yep.
which case then things actually get quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that will be when things start getting difficult.
Yeah.
But the most difficult push really is that 2100 to 2200 to get to that master from diamond,
Yeah.
because that period is I would say the one where you stand to lose the most, I guess, when
Yeah. That's
you're
it.
trying to get to those top spots.
So, just for anyone else that might be like new and stuff. So, when you start doing ranked, first off, it's only solo queue, isn't it? I think we were covering this before. It's only
Yes.
solo queue. So you just get put in with 2 random other people on your team, and then against three other people that obviously are all solo queued in as well.
Yeah.
But when you start and you've just doing your first ranked matches, do you go straight in at bronze, or is there like in League of Legends, for example, you do like
Mhm.
10 games and then you get placed somewhere? Is there anything like that?
So there are qualifiers. Yes, they're a little bit different from the rest. So in
Okay.
previous seasons, everybody started at 1500. Now it's a little bit different. So the
Okay.
rank that you attained in the previous season influences the rank that you're going to get in the new season.
Right.
If you've never played rank before and you're a fresh player, you're going to be starting at 1250, which is going to be
Okay.
bronze.
Yep.
And if you were placed higher, you essentially start at the tier below, with diamond being the highest. So if you place diamond, you start at 1850. If you were plat, you start at 1650. So on and so forth. So 50 points above the the lower rank, essentially.
Okay.
So that's where you start. And you do have qualifiers, but you don't get placed in a specific rank. As I said, everybody starts with a given amount of points.
Yep.
Either 1250 if you're new, or variable based on your previous season ranking. And you gain and lose an exorbitant amount of points during your first few matches.
Okay.
So I believe it's for your first 10 matches or so. Actually, I think I have this documented somewhere. Let me see if I can bring it up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so your first 10 matches, you get 2.5 times more rating than you usually would.
Wow.
So normally when you lose or win a match, you're getting roughly around 13 to 16 points.
Okay.
Averages around 14, 15 usually. And during your first 10 matches, you're getting 2.5 times that. So you are gonna be getting usually like 40 plus points per match, if not more. Usually maybe getting 45. During your 11th to your 30th match, you are getting twice your rating. So you'd be getting around 30 to 35 points usually from your matches. Well, gaining or losing, which is why it's so important, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then from your 31st to your 100th match, you're getting 50% more points, so 1.5 times modifier. So going to be around the 20-25 mark ish, and that's how much you're going to be gaining. And then once you clear your 100th match, you are down to just a regular gain, which is the 13 to 16. And so qualifiers are really, really important because it influences how many points you gain. So there are lots of people who just make old characters and Smurfs, and you can climb very quickly because if you can maintain a high win rate, even something like 60%, during those qualifier matches, you're going to climb really, really quickly because you're going to be gaining a lot of points. If you win most of your first 10 matches, even if you lose the next 20 matches, because of the massive rating gain that you had during the first 10, you'd probably still be at a very similar rating regardless, even though you have a lower win rate than 50%. So that's why these qualifier matches tend to be really important when it comes to establishing your place at the beginning. So if you're going into ranked, I'd recommend you spend a lot of time in unranked first practicing so that you don't just completely tank your rating, get yourself to like 800 points, and then never be able to climb all the way back because now you have to win over 5,000 matches with like a 55% win rate to climb to that level.
That's it. So just cutting in again, as we actually forgot to mention the rewards you get for Master and Grandmaster at the end of the season. You get all the previous ones, like the costume, etc. But you also get an aura, which is just for, a visual thing around your character to make it look cool and to be able to, I guess, like flex and show off the fact that you've achieved Master or Grandmaster. But you also get the blue crystals, which can be used in the cash shop. Currently on the RU version, it's 1,500 blue crystals for Master and 5,000 for Grandmaster. So quite a reward there. And is it for other people as well, like again, like more new players looking into this, is it character based or is it account based?
It is account based.
It's account based,
yeah. It used to be character based, but they changed it, and now any character that you play in ranked is going to share the exact same rating. So that can be good if you are a multi-classer or you're a flex player. It can be a little bit difficult if you want to experiment with a new class in ranked because, well, that class now is going to have the same rating as your main. There is a way around it, and the way that people usually do Smurfs is even though it's the same account, servers technically consider your account to be different, right? So even for PvE stuff, if you get your Mokoko seeds or you get your skill points or you do your Tower of Fate and your Tower of Doom and all that stuff, all of that's based on your server. So in Russia we have two servers, we have Kratos and Alderan. If I do all the stuff in Alderan, that doesn't translate over to Kratos. So I could just go to the server select screen, create a new character in Kratos since I play on Alderan, and then it's gonna be considered as if it was a fresh new account.
Right. Okay, so so you can kind of reset the ranking there. So if you do terrible on one and it's really, really important for you and you really want to make the most of this initial like boost that you can potentially get from your points, then you can go on another server, or as you say,
just keep in mind that it is considered almost like a separate account, right? So if your main, your guild, your buddies, everybody's on one server, the other server is completely separate. So the PvP queue, the looking for group, the matchmaking for dungeons is the same, but you're not gonna be able to party up with your friends. Your main is not going to be on that server. So you can maybe make a new character there and try it out in ranked when you're practicing, and then if you feel that you're comfortable, then you can start playing on your main server with the character that your main ranked rating essentially. But there are many people who just kind of smurf and create copies of their characters to climb, which is unfortunate, but they're not really doing anything to stop that, sadly.
Yeah. No, that's fair there. So, you touched on this a little bit a minute ago as well. I mean, we can just speed through this if you want to, but like for anyone who wants to really focus and their main focus is PvP and the main thing they want to do is climb ranked and get to that kind of diamond master or even grandmaster rankings, right? So, any tips for anyone just focusing on like PvP? Like, would you say that maybe like focusing on one class and just really learning that is like a good thing, or doing tons and tons of duels and maybe some custom 3v3s or something to get some like as much experience as possible? What would you say?
Duels, never do them because, as I said, they're a bit of a joke. Gear matters, they
That's fair.
yeah, PvE versions go. So if you're gonna practice in team deathmatch 3v3. It's difficult because I think it depends at what level of skill you are at. I would make different recommendations to different kinds of players. If you're just starting out and you want to get to Grandmaster, I would say don't even do ranked. Just practice a lot in casuals. Try to understand how your class works. I would say pick a class to start with, but don't limit yourself too much. It's good to be a flex player. Make use of the fact that ranked lets you play multiple classes and you still share the same rating. So while you can focus on one class to climb, it's always good to have other characters that can play around your matchups, right? If the queue is bad or if the queue is favoring certain things. So I play Artillerist, right? Blaster. And Artillerist is really, really strong, but it was also really, really difficult to deal with bards. So if both teams have a bard, maybe I'll say an Artillerist. If there's only one bard in queue that I'm getting frequently, I don't want to take that risk because it's going to be, to me, a 50-50 on whether I have a bard on my team, and then I'm unstoppable because I just use energy field. The bard uses Endom. I can do my combo. I kill people in one combo. Easy. But then if they're in the enemy team, they Rhapsody. It doesn't matter. They use Endom. I can't catch people. Then it becomes really difficult. So at that point, I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to change to a class that I think can work together well with bard, but can also shut down bard very well. So I might swap to my summoner, for example, and then play that class because I think in that environment it will perform better. So stay flexible because it's good to focus on one class and get really good at it. But if you really just want to be climbing, as opposed to, okay, I want to master this specific class, or I want to master a comp that I want to play for a tournament. If you're actually trying to climb, then being flexible is probably the best thing that you can do. But again, new players, practice in ranked, grind out these games, figure out how your classes work and how other classes work. And then if you're a more experienced player, then it's more just be patient, because if you can maintain a positive win rate, it doesn't matter how bad the queue is and how terrible you think your teammates are. If you carry enough games, if you perform well enough times, you are going to climb. It may take 1,000 matches, it may take 2,000 matches, it may take 5,000 matches in the case of some players, but they do make it to master and they do make it to grandmaster. And we have players that have really grinded out the game, and they make it eventually simply because they're dedicated to getting that positive win rate and making sure that they can stay in the game for the long run.
That's it. Because I mean, I've been looking at like the win rate and stuff, and I said my first couple of matches going straight into the game a few weeks back and stuff with Gunslinger, I think I'd started off at maybe like a 40% win rate off the bat, and I managed to push that to 50% pretty quick, and then I've maintained this 51% and 50 kind of win rate for the moment, which I thought was not too bad for someone kind of coming in. But obviously that's not ranked. That's just me doing that. I guess maybe the ultimate kind of thing for someone who's like, this is what I want to do. Grandmaster is for me. I want to get there. I've got all the time in the world to play this game and do that. Would probably, I mean, what would you say to someone like getting as many characters as possible to 50 to then play them all in unranked, just to learn the different things. Would that be like super beneficial, or maybe potentially just like a massive time investment?
Don't spread yourself too thin. It may be, I think, if we get the nostalgia patch, which is very likely we will, 26 is going to be the level, so it's going to be a lot easier to level a character. You can probably level a character to that in 2 to 3 hours. So it's
lovely.
You just make a new character if you feel like playing it, but again, don't spread yourself too thin. There are many people who play multiple classes, but you are still going to focus on specific, mains that you're gonna be really good at. Even really good multi classes. So one person that probably many people are familiar with, Typhoon, for example, who's a Grandmaster Korean player. He's gone to Grandmaster with multiple classes. He's got there with Scouter. He's got there with Gunslinger. He's even got there with Arcana. But then his artillerist is currently at gold. So you have a person who plays lots of different characters and does really well, but you still have certain characters you want to be focusing on. You still want to be able to master a few select classes. I would say focus on getting good at a specific class or a certain playstyle. Keep your options open and have multiple classes that you can also play, so that you understand them very well and you can adjust to the queue. But if you're playing lots of different classes because you like them and you feel you can be equally good on all these different classes, then by all means. But at the end of the day, you can't predict what the rank queue is going to give you. One time you're getting barred, by the time you swap to another character, well, the queue's already popped for them, so what are you going to be getting now? You're in a different queue. So it's just play what you like playing. At the end of what gets you to Grandmaster is you have people who have been playing this game for 2 to 3 years to compete with. If you're going in fresh, what's going to get you to a high rank is whether you can stay committed to the game. And just like any kind of workout routine or a diet that you take, the best one is the one that you can stick with for the longest. So
true.
Play a class that you enjoy playing, and over time you will get there.
That's amazing. That's really good advice. Thank you for all that. The next one I've got is about esports, because there's esports for Korean version. Is there esports for the RU version, the Russian version?
It's complicated. So esports for KR is also in a bit of a complicated spot. So we had Royal Roaders, which was the big Korean tournament that they had. It was hosted by OGN. It was streamed, televised. It was this big event, but it wasn't actually all that popular in Korea. And PvP back then was also incredibly, possibly unbearably unbalanced. So it wasn't that much of a success. Around the same time, there was also a tournament in Russia sponsored by Mail.ru, a proper official tournament for the Russian region at a very similar time. It wasn't as big as the Korean one. You didn't have the OGN, Korean casters and professional people playing live on stage. It was an online tournament, if I recall correctly. I'm not sure if it was LAN or not, but I think it was an online tournament. And it was sponsored by Mail.ru and it was official, though at a smaller scale. But ever since then, again, there has been no other big tournaments officially sponsored in either region. Just very recently in LOA Mini, which happened this summer, which is a conference that they have, they announced certain updates for the game. They kind of showcase certain roadmaps that they wanted to do. During that update, they did say that Royal Rollers is coming back. So Korea is trying to get back in that esports scene, and they want to make PvP happen for this game again. And I'm really happy with that. Because they've been saying, oh, we're going to be pumping out balance patches. We're going to be paying more attention to fixing classes and make things more even. And that applies to PvP too. And committing to Royal Roaders and making that announcement is their way of being held accountable for it. Because if you have a tournament where everything is terribly unbalanced and you see the same 2-3 comps in every single team, it probably won't be too entertaining to watch, and it will show a very clear message. So whether that's going to apply to the other regions, I don't know. Royal Roaders is a Korean-only tournament, and sadly, JP and Russia do follow different game clients, right? We're not at the same patch as Korea. If we're going to have a world tournament, but Russia doesn't have sorcerers, then how the hell are they going to learn how to fight against that class, or even incorporate that class in their comps? So I'm not sure there will be much of a world stage, because patches are delayed, it is an MMO. We do have to catch up. It's not simultaneous release. But we have seen things like this happen with other games. Blade and Soul has had world tournaments despite being an MMO with catching up. Dungeon Fighter Online also had certain world tournaments which brought people from all regions. So if
Amazing.
PvP really takes off, especially in the West, I think a competitive esports scene in a world stage may be possible. But for now, I think he'll probably be somewhat localized, predominantly community driven and, player oriented.
Yep.
But there may be potential for big sponsors and big players to come to the scene, likely riding on how well Royal Road is and how likely UNA is going to be performing within that PvP space.
Okay, no, that's good. Yeah, because I was going to ask like if you thought that maybe it might come over to the western side, but yeah, I guess it's a wait and see. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it might. That'd be amazing because we could have a massive player base through EU and NA, so it would be really cool to see it. Like, that'd be really amazing. So next thing here I've got. So basically, without making a tier list, because tier lists and stuff are really hard to make because of balance changes and everything. Yeah, we're not even going to touch on tier lists, but anything like that. So without making a tier list, due to there being so many variables and things, are there potentially, and we can just skip this question if you want, but are there potentially any classes that you feel generally perform better in PvP? Let's just say, for example, that everyone playing these classes are at like platinum level, right? So just say that whoever's playing it has got experience, and it, like platinum level experience with that certain character. Would you say that maybe there are some that might perform a bit better, or not really?
There are, yeah, but I kind of want to preface this, and I think I did this in the Ark as well, right? Is ranked is solo queue only.
Yep.
A class that's going to perform well in a solo queue environment is not necessarily a class that's going to perform well in a competitive tournament environment. When I think, is this class strong or not, I'm thinking, how will this class perform in the optimal environment of the best players? Yep. And even if you're thinking like Plat Plus, that's still a very different world from high diamond master, grandmaster level, right? Even if you're getting there's still a very big difference there. So you have certain classes that can kind of cheese their way up to a higher rank because they can exploit gimmicks that you need good coordination to counter. But then they get to that higher rank where everybody knows the gimmick and they play in a very reactive, coordinated playstyle, and suddenly that becomes a little bit less viable. So it's very difficult to say this class is universally strong. And even when I say, you're saying, an environment where everybody's Plat Plus, again, that is one Q bracket. What if you have a master 2 plats versus double diamonds, one plat?
It's very
or what
true.
if you have, if you have that solo queue team comp, because it is solo queue, and then you have some comp like Sorceress, Hawkeye, Summoner, all very ranged classes that struggle to stay safe.
Yep.
And then the enemy team is something like Destroyer, Demonic, Zerker. Even if some classes may be considered stronger than others in the range comp, just the fact that you're kind of you're facing a bad comp because solo queue did not matchmake you with a balanced team, because the matchmaking is truly random. The only thing that it cares about is no double classes. So unless the other team has the exact same double classes as your team does. So it gets to that point where it's really difficult to say if classes are strong or weak. There is one thing that I would say is universally strong, which is the supports. And so Bard, Holy Knight, and Warlord to a lesser extent. And in a way, Soulmaster, because of Anarchy Discharge, she has ways of peeling for her team. She has the lowest damage reduction cooldown in the game. But I think Bard and Holy Knight primarily are the true, universally considered to be like very, very strong supports. Even if individually they're not strong, and it's, my heart goes out and massive respect to anyone that tries to solo queue climb on these classes, because it's great if the class is good, but solo queue is not going to be placing you with everybody's a high level player, including yourself. It's going to be, you're going to be that diamond with the 2 bronze players, and if you're not killing the enemy team, which you can't because you're a bard, then nobody is. So it doesn't matter if your team doesn't die if you can't kill them either. But
Mhm.
these classes, Bard, Holy Knight, and to a lesser extent Warlord, perform very, very, very well in a high
Mhm.
level team comp. I would argue that you would need at least one of them in every competitive tournament team comp. I think when Royal Roaders comes, and I may eat my words, but I
Yep.
think we're gonna see at least one Bard, Warlord, Holy Knight, or Soul Master in each team, and there's not
Okay.
gonna be a single team that's not gonna have at least one of these because they are very, very solid and very strong at a high level.
Perfect. Okay. No, that's perfect. I appreciate everything you said there. Is there anything else you want to before I move on to the next one? Anything else you want to wrap up on that, or?
I mean, there are many classes which may be considered, even stronger. So, we had Gunslinger being super broken, and she got a patch in KR this summer, which kind of nerfed one of her super broken pods, and she also got
Mhm.
some damage reductions across the board. So, Gunslinger was incredibly dominant, and Scouter has always been a super super strong class in KR. Russia, it's not as popular a class, but everyone kind of acknowledges that the class is really really strong.
Mhm.
But they just don't have I would say, in this kind of environment, just something like Bard and Holy Knight is something that is always good to have.
Mhm.
Whereas you can still probably get some bad comps even with these classes. So I just say supports are very strong because I would have you have supports and then you have everybody else.
Yep.
And having a support is just a really, really important part of a team comp. It's usually what makes a difference at a high level match. But again,
Amazing.
solo queue is different from pre-made, and a plat plus only match is different from a master plus only match, which is different from a regular solo queue match with random players, which is also going to be different from just all kinds of different ranks mixing together, which is what's going to happen.
For
So this
sure.
is not me saying play this class that's crazy strong in solo queue or play this class that's crazy strong in pre-mades.
Mhm.
Just these are relatively consistent classes.
Yeah. I mean, if any class, to be fair, if you get to a stage where you've mastered it and you've put in the time,
Yeah.
you've put in the hours, can be very strong. So
Yeah,
if
I'm not
you've
gonna lie.
mastered it, so
There are very few classes in this game that I'd say are weak. I think every class can be competitive so long as you have the right team comp. It's just that there are some
Mhm.
classes that suffer more with certain team comps than others.
Mhm.
But I don't think we have any maybe two bad classes. But even then, you can still get master in them. You still see these players reach master rank in both servers, KR and Russia.
Mhm.
And if they can compete at that level,
Yep.
then any class can.
Amazing. Okay, perfect with that one. Okay, so yeah, talking about like team comps and things. My next question was just one for yourself. Just a
Mm-hmm.
bit of an opinion or how maybe you feel. So it's like if you could choose your own perfect kind of 3v3 setup, like if you were going into a tournament, what
Mm-hmm.
three classes would you have? Like what would you play and what would you like to be with you if you were choosing?
So the spot that wouldn't change is Sorceress because I want to play Sorceress.
There we
So
go.
that's not necessarily because I think she's great at a tournament place. I think Sorceress is too recent. I
Hmm.
think she's pretty strong, but we still need to give a lot of time to see where she kind of settles in.
Yeah.
But since I want to play Sorceress, I'm gonna say Sorceress.
Yeah, well, there we go
So
then.
Sorceress is the first character,
Perfect.
and I would probably play her with a Blade and a Holy Knight to
Hmm.
have a team comp that works around Sorceress. We need to have a support,
Hmm.
and Sorceress is a very backline character. I think if you're having two backlines, Sorceress unfortunately doesn't have a lot of good self PO.
Yep.
Her survivability is her identity, which gets a teleport to move away. But if you're moving away, you're now separate from your team.
Yeah.
So a class like Summoner, for example, syncs very well with Bard and can be a very competitive tournament team comp
Hmm.
because Summoner is very immobile. She has okay self PO, but the Bard and the Summoner can kind of peel for each other and help each other out. So if you have like a frontliner, something like Destroyer, Summoner, Bard can be very competitive
Hmm.
because the Destroyer works as that unbreakable wall that protects the Bard and the Summoner.
Yeah.
And if someone does go in, you just eat a Phoenix and you lost 40% of your health. But Sorceress is a little bit more finicky. She's more of an enabler. So I feel that a class that's a little bit more damage oriented when it comes to support, such as Holy Knight, and one
Hmm.
that's a little bit more frontliner, working together with Blade, who's a extremely strong defensive melee that
Hmm.
also has rush down abilities, would probably be the best tournament team comp that I would say for Sorcerers. But again, we have to see where Sorcerer stands.
Of course, of course. I like that because as you're saying, like Sorceress being like an enabler class, and obviously, if you're watching this at a point where it's before NA and EU comes out, or just as we get into it, the class isn't coming to us at launch,
That's right.
Sorceress. But being like a range enabler, if you can lock down someone and then you've got like the destroyer as kind of your wall to stop someone getting to you, but then the blade just rushes in on the person you've locked down, gets tons of damage off, you might be able to
Yeah.
burst someone down quite well. So it's quite a nice, interesting team comp there. I really
Yeah.
like the sound of that. Cool. Okay, so if we jump straight into the next question I've got is any kind of like tips or like things you need to know, like as a new player coming into Lost Ark, and just like we don't need to go into super detail
Mhm.
about these because there's so many things. So just like a bit of an overview. So someone who's literally watching this and gone, I haven't done any PvP. I've only started looking into the game like last week and things, because there's things like super armors, the camera angles, with blind spots and stuff. Do you want to
Yeah.
maybe just talk about them a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm gonna self-shield a bit
Mhm.
because the things that I think every single player would need to know are the things that I'm trying to do guides on,
Yep. Fine.
because I think they're the most important. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say the first and foremost, the most important thing is understand how crowd control works.
Yep.
Thankfully, that's one of the ones that I have made a guide for,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, it's weird because most Korean games are Korean MMOs at the very least are very CC heavy. If you play Western MMOs, usually they're not quite like that.
Mm-hmm.
So even when you compare it to kind of top-down arena games like Battle Right, for example, the moments where you're in CC are the moments where big plays happen or they're interrupts, so they're very specific, crucial moments.
Yeah.
In Lost Ark, you're gonna spend half of your match dealing with CC, if not more. So crowd control is really, really, really important. I cannot stress this enough.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone that's new into the game is going to get incredibly frustrated when every time I go on the Lost Ark Discord and when I see a new player in PvP, they're
Mm-hmm.
always complaining, why do I hit this class and nothing happens to them, but then they hit me and I can't do anything? And that's what everybody always says. And it's like, that's because you don't understand how the CC works. That's because
Yeah.
you walked in with a skill that's not knockdown immune, and they use a knockdown on you, while they themselves were hard stiff immune, or they themselves were knockdown immune. And so you just kind of try to trade when you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Or a class uses a specific skill, and you don't know that that's a CC. You don't know which of your skills are immunes and how you can deal with that. So it may be a very simple thing. So artillerists using Gatling gun
Yep.
against newer players, that is the freest skill in the game. It's so easy to steam new players with that class because they don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to deal with it. You use
Yep.
Gatling gun, they think it's an instant catch. If you know about CC, that's a soft stiffness.
Yep.
You can just basic attack. You can use any animation. That's not going to hit you. So if you know that it's coming, just spam basic attack, and now the blast is sitting there like an idiot, and you can go in and punish. So
That's amazing.
that's the understanding how CC works, understanding how you can counter these different
Mm-hmm.
CCs, understanding what each class can do and what the
Yep.
class that you're playing can do to both inflict and resist them is by far the most important thing that I would say for you to
Perfect.
learn. Like any new player should learn that.
Amazing. So I just want to say to everyone watching this as well that definitely, and I was going to do this towards the end, but I'm going to do it now anyway. Definitely check out Lino's channel. Obviously, all the links, everything, are going to be down in the description because you stream on Twitch and you've got your
That's right,
YouTube
yeah.
channel. You've got your guides and things, and they're amazing, by the way. So you need to check them
Thank
out.
you.
Yeah, just absolutely pumped full of all the juicy bits of information. Because while we're going through like overviews and stuff here, when you want to get down to the actual juicy stuff, then yeah, check out his channel. Amazing there. So no, that's brilliant. The is there anything else? Any other things
Yeah,
you want to talk about?
so the second thing that I say is most important, this is not one that there's, a general guide for. This is something that's going to depend on what you're playing, and that is know what skills to use. Some classes have kits and skills that you pick, builds that have remained very stable for years.
Yep.
Bard has run the same build for 2 years now,
Wow.
more.
Okay.
And you don't have much freedom in terms of how you're going to be changing that build, because at most you might change one skill.
Okay.
And even then, you're not going to be seeing anything deviating from that main meta build in a higher level of play.
Okay.
So know which skills to pick. There are some classes like Blade who have like 2 or 3 skills that are bad. Everything else works. Just like 2 core skills, anything else is interchangeable.
Wow.
All you need to know is just kind of what pods you want to be picking for those skills and what playstyle you want to be going with. So there are some classes that have a lot of build variety, others that don't. But know which skills are strong for your class and what build you should be running. Because you're probably not going to be doing anything in PvP if you're running a PvE build and thinking that you're going to be doing well. Again, going back to the CC point, if you're taking skills with no CC immunity or just taking big damage, as I mentioned at the beginning, Doomsday and Sorceress is great, big media, wow, incredible. Don't run that in PvP. You're throwing the match just by running that skill.
Yeah.
So it's know what you want to be running on your class. Do your research.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So do some research and things there for sure. Okay, so this next question, just before we get into like all the classes and stuff going through with that, this one's just for a bit of fun. And this was like, what's the highest damage, if just going by any kind of memory, when you can remember, what's the highest damage you've seen done or that you've done in a PvP match by like a single character? Just thrown out there, because I've seen people do like, I've seen, you know, there's people that have shown me screenshots of like 900k damage match, 1 million damage match. What's the highest you've seen?
The most I have ever seen, I don't receive many screenshots. At best I might spy a montage here and there or see someone post a screenshot in the Discord. But usually people who are posting screenshots of damage are people who haven't gotten to those high level games where you are, like I said, 500, 550k is already going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
The most that I've ever seen, or at least that I've done, was 1.2 million, just about, which was on Artillerist. It was in May this year. And I remember that very clearly because we got a patch in May, which the Russian May patch, which is equivalent to the Korean April balance patch, that buffed Blaster and made missile bombing, which is a specific skill, do a lot more damage with its third pod. So that's when the build kind of shifted for Blaster to run tier 3 missile bombing.
Right.
And I decided to start playing that, try out that new pods. You know, Blaster used to take a more defensive skill set of Plasma Cloud, but now the build is usually running a skill called Howitzer and this tier 3 missile bombing, so that you can do a stun and then you can do like a 70% health combo just in one shot and people can't roll out of it. And I was practicing the class and I was kind of having a lot of fun with this new build.
Yeah.
And I kind of played very late into the night. It was probably 4 a.m. Russian time.
Right.
And silver time. So when you're playing that late, there's nobody in queue. You probably should stop, because even getting a pop is probably going to be difficult if you're in Russia. In Korea, you can get away with it, but in Russia, it's going to be very difficult. So the game is going to throw you with whoever it finds.
Yeah.
And the whoever it found was just a collection of like G16, G14 players. So the way that the Gladiator rank works, you start at G20 and you go all the way down to G1. And that's a tutorial level, right? People who are at that rank have literally just started PvPing for the first time in their lives. And remember, because PvP rank is account bound, they don't even have other classes unless it's smurfing. So, and at that game, they weren't. It was very obvious. And so the entire enemy team just kept walking into everything that I did. It was almost like the game played itself. I would put down a missile bombing, do an airstrike, just trying to peel for my buddies. And then they just all 3 walk into both of them. And it was just, what? I put that kind of just to stop them from going in. But if you want to go in and you want to keep taking damage, be my guest.
Yeah.
So
1.2 million.
So my 2 teammates also were G rank, so they weren't doing too much damage, which meant that all the damage was just done by not even me, I would say. It was just the class. I don't think I played well. I think the class kind of played itself at that point because the players were really new. And so they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what the skills were. And they just kind of kept getting caught by dumb shit. And I've never done more than that 1.3 million. I don't think I ever will, because getting high damage values is difficult when you're fighting good players. Very difficult.
I bet like that's really big numbers. So anyone who hasn't played Lost Ark PvP, from my perspective, being someone who's been doing quite a lot of it, but only really recently, I see a lot of games where people are doing 400k, a 500, and this is unranked. This is just me going in like fresh. 400k, 500k, the occasional game of someone doing 600, 700k, and very rarely I think I've seen one or two like 800k damage. But to reach a million or above is insanely hard. One as well, just because of the timer. You don't have enough time to deal that much damage, do you?
You have to get double and triple catches. That's the only way you can hit that much. The only class that I think can do that, it would be some like artillerist or summoner, because they have very big AoEs, so it's easier to handle multiple players. I wouldn't even say it's hard, because it's not your skill as a player that gets you that level of damage. Once you break kind of like that 1 million barrier, it's not that you're good. It's just that you're fighting bad players. That's just it. You're just fighting really, really beginner players that are getting to grips with the game for the first time. Because it's just impossible to get that kind of. You can't be that good. It's not possible.
It's really difficult. Well, I set myself a little like personal target, and I'm quite glad of all the stuff you've talked about, because it's kind of reaffirming for me a little bit that I think this might have been a good little like target for myself. Is on my gunslinger, I set myself a target for that every game, best I can, is to try and reach about 500k damage, more if possible, but only take about 300k damage while I was learning to kite. And I thought that was quite good, even though I'm not getting the biggest damage in the game and I'm not getting this and that. I was still being an asset to my team, because I was getting like 4 kills with a couple of assists, but maybe only 1 or 2 deaths for like the whole thing. But that was with a lot of focus on kiting and trying to counter blades and infighters or scrappers that are just so mobile and get you. So I thought that was a good little target. So maybe set yourself like a little target or something to try and, you know, obviously have more damage than damage taken. Which I thought was quite interesting. But okay, so yeah, that was, I mean, 1.2 million damage is massive.
I think that may have been people hit like 1.3. I think I've maybe seen somewhere, but at that point I was like, Jesus Christ, that's not even going to be possible once we get the timer change that Korea has, because matches are going to go from 5 minutes to 4 minutes. At that point, I think breaking 1 million is going to be close to impossible because of the lower time that you have.
So I was just trying to stress to people like how big of a damage game that is. It's quite
I also
fun.
want to stress how like don't push for that, because you're not gonna get it. If you get that, the problem is the game. It's not that you're because like don't be like, oh, you know, I popped off, I did really good. It's like, nah, you didn't. It's just that you're fighting horrible players. That's my message.
All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Remember, we've got part 2 coming up very soon in another video. It was just getting quite long, so I figured I'd split this up. Remember, all the links will be down in the description to Lino's YouTube channel and his Twitch, as well as, obviously, I stream on the channel here and I stream on Twitch as well. So if you fancy coming by and saying hi to any of us, that would be amazing. Also, as well, let me know what you think of all this down in the comments below. Was this helpful for you? I know it was helpful for me. And thank you so much if you've made it all the way here, and hopefully you'll enjoy part 2 as much as I did. So see you very soon.